Do you like stupid combos? Janky mishmashes of cards that probably shouldn't work? How about inducing levels of rage so hard your opponent might get DQ'd for punching you? Well, why are you watching this video? Go play Alhamat. This is Sylvia Myths. Man, I should add some variety to this channel. The perfect thing to do is release a deck list that uses the same key card as my first. Well, you're going to be seeing more of this thing. I promise the way we use it will be different from your typical Myth deck. For starters, we're running Prisia Beta, aka Sylvia. Rather than focus on a mix of control with an aggro ruler, we're going to be playing an explosive OTK to try and kill our opponent in one go. So without further ado, here's the deck list. Space is pretty tight for this list, since you need so many key cards to make your plays go off. There's very little you don't want to be running at 3 or 4. The main gimmick for this deck is to get Odin out, preferably through spinning Myths, and then cast Judgment with Sylvia and swing in for game with Prisia's Leap. If Sylvia's automatic effect resolves when she enters, you recover just enough stones to cast Leap with 4 attacks open, which is literally just enough for Sylvia to end the game. A lot of your deck is ramp and draw power. Your 1-cost Resonators are the standard green package. Tama gives you draws, which are important in a combo deck, and Sacred Elf provides early ramp. In a perfect scenario, Sacred Elf actually helps you get Odin out on turn 2, hopefully with a Maria Bella or some other strong Resonator right behind him. You don't need a card like Divine Bird since this deck doesn't have too many problems with flyers, and it's better to get the draw immediately rather than later. Whispers is the real playmaker of the deck. It grabs a bunch of cards and makes things plus. If you Whispers a spinning Myths, you're guaranteed the Torrent effect and that it costs 1 less. If you Whispers rewriting Laws, you gain an extra floating will, and if you pull either Tama or Elf, you gain a free draw or mana dork. 9 times out of 10, this card is always going to make sure that you're ahead of your opponent and that they have to respect your plays. There's some room for tech options in this deck, but not many. My choice is Maria Bella, since she's a nice backup boss monster if you need one or can't cast Judgment. Frigg is almost always a solid one of in a deck that can fit her for recovery, and this deck ramps enough that hard casting her isn't too much of a net loss, but it's still better to put her in with spinning Myths. Other tech choices would be cards like Prisia Pursuant, Supreme King Sylvia, assuming you're also going to run a pump spell with her like Rapid Growth, an instant speed bird spell like Lightning Strike or Blood Boil, or even some counter spells. If you plan to hard commit on having Sylvia be your win condition, then investing in Regalia like Artemis Bow or Excalibur can help since they both give target attack, which would let you recover more stones. Bow also helps with removal since it can potentially kill off blockers before Sylvia swings in, but Gleipnir might work better since you can draw off of it by discarding. It can force a block from things that could potentially stop Sylvia, and even if Leap doesn't kill, it can help you refresh your hand thanks to its secondary draw effect when you do damage to your opponent. Unfortunately, this deck's biggest weakness is also one of the most popular new cards. Severing Winds absolutely brings your deck to a halt since you'll be banking off playing more than 1 card a turn when aiming to get the Torrent effect on spinning or when you try to play whatever you get with Whispers. The best response to this is have your own counter spells to answer theirs, but chances are you won't be able to hit your opponent's Severing with your own. Wall of Wind works wonders in plenty of situations, as chances are your opponent won't have any will to back up their Severing unless you're against a reactive control deck. Keen Sense is a slightly more expensive option, but it guarantees that Severing dies and that you can keep playing. There are other weaknesses to the deck, such as Death Scythe, which straight shuts Sylvia out of getting the kill when she flips, but hopefully it'll be a less prevalent card with Leviathan gone. If not, just run some Regalia Destruction and Mana on the side. Destructive Assault and Heavenly Gust both get the job done. Concord of Satan Beasts is another personal tech option, but it helps both ramp and to remove big threats. You'll almost always have the conditions met to gain both effects with Odin and any of your other win cons out. When played with Sylvia, the card becomes even more of a plus, since you'll not only call a new stone when you kill an opponent's Resonator, but also recover the stones you tap to play Concord. If you really want to play with your resources, you could add in 4 Scorched Bale Stones and run 1 or 2 Curse of Cube. It's another odd tech option, but gives you access to removing problem spells when you will, more often than not, have more will open than your opponent. The Scorched Bales also help if you ever find yourself in a position to hardcast Odin, but hopefully you never actually find yourself in that type of situation. Overall, I find this deck to be really fun, and hopefully some of you agree. When a friend and I originally built this, we didn't expect the tilt fest that we got, which I actually ended up being a part of, as I had to fight this deck in the first round. There's not much left to these Alice Cluster cards, so you might as well try and get as much mileage out of them as you can, especially now that 2 of the biggest problem cards from that cluster are gone. There's probably not much room for older rulers to shine, with Energize being a thing now, but every now and then there's some interesting and stupid tech that you can find. I really wanted to get this list out before Echoes drop, but the powers that be prevented it. It's certainly not much of a competitive deck now, nor was it ever really one, but you can certainly cheese some unsuspecting victims with this. Most importantly though, it gives one of my favorite Alice rulers a chance to see some play thanks to her unique abilities. I know this video was kind of a short one, but the deck's pretty straightforward. It only has one way of winning and tries to turbo that way out as fast as possible. Odin is honestly one of the dumbest cards in the game, but I'll be damned if it isn't fun to find stupid ways to work him into things.